morning, good evening, wherever you may be watching this video. Today we'll be doing an overview of Flare 2.0. Now we've had a spaces as well as a paper come out recently that gave us some more details as to what Flare 2.0 is, what all will be involved. We'll be discussing a little bit of details around that. We'll get into T's or trusted execution environments and how they'll play a pivotal role in achieving Flare 2.0. Then we'll get into protocol managed wallets or PMWs, what they are and some future potential use cases. And then we'll wrap this up with some of my thoughts around Flare 2.0. So with that being said, let's get into today's content. All right, so when getting into the Flare 2.0 Vision Part 1 paper, the main purpose of Flare 2.0 is to expand the capabilities available on a smart contract platform and really enable developers to build more robust applications that may depend on heavy computational resources or, depend on a lot of data. And right now, unfortunately, smart contract platforms tend to be limited when it comes to the amount of data that it can source in a decentralized way. And if you've been paying attention, you've heard Hugo Fillion say we need to be able to build applications that provide a Web 2 experience, but with Web 3 guarantees. And Flare believes that the Flare 2.0 vision will really start to enable developers to be able to do that, be able to provide those seamless experiences to mainstream users and really kick in with that mainstream adoption, but still be able to provide security guarantees that Web3 offers that Web2 applications just simply can't. So to bring all this together and provide those Web2 familiar experiences with Web3 guarantees, the Flare team believes that they need to focus on seamless cross-chain execution, high integrity data from both Web 2 and Web 3, and then provide substantial computational capabilities. If you listen to the spaces that was held this past Thursday or Friday, I believe, you heard Hugo mention how, traditional finance has so many different products, whereas Web3 currently only has a handful of products. And that's mainly because of the large amount of data that can be processed, that can be handled in the traditional finance Web2 world. And most of that data is not available for Web3 applications to consume. So if you tear down that silo, you really build these systems in a connected way, then you should be able to provide that same level of rich data access that Web 2 is able to benefit from, but in Web 3, then you're able to increase or improve the types of applications you can build in the Web 3 space. So how do they plan on bringing all this together? Well, the main pillar of Flare 2.0 is T's or trusted execution environments. So let's get into that. All right, so first off, T's or trusted execution environments, they've been around for a while. This isn't a new concept or a new thing. I just think protocols or teams are starting to look at them and how they can leverage T's and their capabilities for especially bringing artificial intelligence onto the blockchain, using T's to achieve decentralization in terms of AI and things of that nature. So don't think that T's are just this new concept that no one's ever heard of. They've been around for a minute. So basically all a T is a small piece or a small compartment of the overall hardware that's separated from the parent operating system. So, any unauthorized access or tampering essentially is not allowed. If you're using an iPhone, then you're using a T. So your Face ID, your Touch ID, any of that is stored on the T and it's separated from the rest of the operating system. So if your operating system were to be compromised or anything like that, your biometric data won't be compromised because it's all stored in that T and it's totally separate from the rest of the operating system. So keeping that same concept, you can kind of see how T's can be leveraged to do things in a confidential, verifiable way, especially when you're talking about artificial intelligence. So in terms of Flare, T's can securely and privately hold private keys to blockchain addresses, which we'll get into later. Teas can also consume information from reliable sources such as the FTSO, the FDC, the FSP or Flare Systems Protocol, and then apply that information to compute intensive operations and be able to produce outputs that can be trusted because one, the data is reliable, and two, the execution of that code can be verified thanks to the TEE and Flare's native data protocols. Now, with the implementation of TEEs or trusted execution environments, we're introduced to one of the first use cases in the Flare 2.0 vision, which is protocol managed wallets or PMWs. Now, these PMWs are essentially addresses that live on other blockchains and are exclusively authorized to execute transactions based on Flare's data protocols. Now, these addresses, they're governed by a consortium or a group of Ts, and these Ts are only programmed to sign transactions upon receiving a valid set of signatures coming from Flare's validators. So this architecture essentially allows developers to build applications on Flare that allow users to manage assets and execute transactions on any connected chain, interact and use protocols on any supported chain, natively operate addresses on non-smart contract chains such as Bitcoin and XRP, enabling the value of those chains to be used without the need for bridging, which it's that last part. It's that last part that makes me reach far back into the days of when layer cake was going to be a thing. And the more and more I read about PMWs or protocol managed wallets and remembering why Hugo and the Flare team felt the need to shift away from bridging, in my opinion, this might be better than bridging. If you're able to essentially interact with assets that live on a totally different blockchain, interact with protocols that are on a totally different blockchain, all while using Flare as that jumping off point or that hub, you essentially eliminate the need to bridge. Why do I need to bridge and wrap assets, which just increases my risk threshold, right? Whereas I can keep those assets on their native chain and still utilize protocols that are on that chain that I may want to use or leverage myself, being that I'm coming from Flare. Now, this enables developers to essentially build one application on Flare and utilize their native data protocols on top of extend consensus to other chains and provide access to protocols that are outside of Flare, but that doesn't matter anymore because of the FDC, the FTSO, and PMWs. All right, so this was a very brief, very concise overview of the Flare 2.0 vision, at least the first part of it. So be sure to read the paper in its entirety of the part 1 version of the vision to be sure that you fully understand things. Ask your questions on X or any other medium. I like how in the previous Twitter Spaces or X Spaces, I believe that was Friday, Hugo gave a lot of detail, gave a lot of insight into how Ts will be implemented, the different use cases that protocol managed wallets will be able to fulfill, and really gave some insight as to why version 1.1 of F Assets and version 2 of F Assets were delayed. I'm not surprised that he was very straight to the point in terms of giving a release date for version 1.1 of F Assets on Songbird. Just a straight cut and dry no. I understand, being part of teams that have had to deliver technology in the past, giving a date or even a window of time when something can be released has bitten us in the ass before, and I'm pretty sure it's bitten a lot of other developers and people who deliver products to the market. It's bitten them before, so I totally understand why Hugo wants to steer clear from giving a date. If you want to get a hint as to when version 1.1 of F Assets will be available on Songbird, go look at the GitHub, things of that nature, and you'll get a good idea. I like how Hugo and the Flare team seem to be working or thinking on their feet, especially coming out of feedback from the F Assets test on Songbird. There were clearly some architectural issues that needed to be addressed before F Assets was really available for production or mainnet release. So I'm all fine and good with that. I'm glad that they were able to find a viable solution. And honestly, PMW wallets or protocol managed wallets. I am definitely looking forward to that. Clearly, they'll be used in bringing XRP staking to life. I'm pretty sure any staking protocol that is built on Flare for another asset will utilize PMWs in some form or fashion. It's already been hinted that FSX V2 will use protocol managed wallets to enable the unlimited minting of FSX and so on. And this is just the first part of this Flare 2.0 vision. So there's plenty left to be discovered, plenty of questions to be asked, and I'm pretty sure answers will come to those questions as we kind of learn more and this vision really forms and gets its skeleton under itself. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the Flare team delivers on this vision. And honestly, I can't wait for FSX. So I'm all good with the delays as long as we're able to make steady progress and we're able to say, hey, we had to rethink a few things and this is how or why we pivoted. So there's that. But in terms of, future use cases for PMWs, if this really is able to be built out how it's been explained on paper, this is a game changer for the entire industry. Most of the industry, they're totally fine with bridging as it is today, even though it's one of the main points of attacks for loss of funds and anything like that in the industry. So I don't understand why this hasn't become like an industry-wide issue that we're all trying to work to solve. But PMWs seem to essentially eliminate the need for bridging and wrapping assets, which would be a total game changer. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how Flare can yet again make a dent in the industry and really start to make the entire industry question their practices, and make us work towards better solutions for some of these problems that we're all encountering. So I mean, we'll just have to see. But exciting days as always. The future is indeed bright. And with that being said, man, I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know how you felt about this video in the comments. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you later. Peace.